Done. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Lachie. Welcome to my school video. That's finished. That's done. Let's do the next thing. What's the next thing? Hi everyone, my name is Lachie and welcome to my Skillshare video. Today I wanted to show you how I make my patterns for sewing and also how I recreate clothing but change it a little bit for me. I used to do this all the time when I was a drag queen. I'll put up some examples. That I made. It might seem a little wasteful when you first see it, but it's definitely something I recommend if you're going to mass produce or recreate the same silhouette or same style multiple times. And also, it's an easy way to get clothing done. I'm sure there's something I can take from this. So what you need for this is a quick unpick, some fabric shears, some paper to write on. I personally like using wrapping paper, but you can use anything. And of course, whatever you're making a pattern of. This time it's a t-shirt, but I will be doing a dress later. And of course, the first thing you want to do is actually flip your garment inside out so that you can see the seams and the stitching. So jumping straight into it, we're just going to go up every seam and unpick it. I personally prefer using scissors, which I'm about to do right now. Just because it's quicker for me, and I just add a centimeter seam allowance on every edge when I'm writing up the pattern. That is of course personal preference. If you prefer unpicking the seams, it does leave you with a cleaner edge, but I just prefer using scissors. So something that I like to do personally through this process is to just make sure that I'm cutting every seam and that I'm not cutting through any pieces of fabric. I cut up the placket, and of course I cut off the collar and the stand and make sure that they're separate pieces. But I try not to cut any bits of fabric that don't have seams on it. That's just to make sure that I keep the same size and shape, because if I'm doing any alterations, I'll do them during the pattern making phase. So the next step is drawing out the patterns. I personally prefer using wrapping paper just because you can get those big pieces on it without having to stick bits of paper together. And basically what I do is I sketch out and trace out the size and shape that I need, and then I add a centimeter seam allowance. This is just to make sure that no matter how poorly I sew it later on down the line, I've got a centimeter's worth of leeway, which can also really help when it comes to altering garments and things like that. And then of course you cut them out, and I personally like writing little notes on them just to make sure that I know which is which, what does what, and how kind of they sit together and fit together. I write as I go when cutting up a garment as well, just to make sure that I can remember how it was sewn. And that's how I make the pattern for a t-shirt. For bodies with breasts, it can be a little bit more complicated because you do need to take into consideration different shapes and darts and stuff, but a good example of that will be coming up right now. So, like normal, the dress is actually a little bit more complicated. It's split up into two parts, being the top piece and the skirt. Don't mind my really broken dress form. Oh my gosh, I need to get that fixed. So with this dress, cutting up the seams is a little bit more complicated because, as you can see, all of the seams are actually sewn on the inside of this dress, which is double layered. That can be a little bit frustrating, but also it's a pretty easy thing to go around. So basically, to start this dress off, I did the same thing. I flipped it upside down. I did go up the back seam, and when it came to the zip, I wanted to keep the zip. So I did unpick a little bit of it at the bottom before cutting around it. And then I just cut around the waistline of the skirt. And that'll free up everything and create two separate pieces. Something to keep in mind is that I did unpick completely around the zip just because I did really want to keep that zip. Now, because this dress has two layers, I did have to cut down the sides where the zip was, which were serged, and I also cut around the bottom just to make sure that there's gaps enough that I can kind of flip it inside out and follow the seam lines. And now that the dress is inside out, I do want to go around and separate the black bits of fabric from the nude bits of fabric, just because the black bits are pretty much just the breast cups, and the new bits I don't really need. I do also like to write out what I'm doing and how the dress was constructed, just so I know how to put it back together once it's all done, before I go around and cut up all the pieces. And now that all the pieces are cut out, I do want to draw them up. I'm using an old drawing pad for this one just because they are smaller pieces. But I draw up the shapes and then I mark in where they go. Because it's a dress, it's a little bit more structured and a little bit more complicated. So I like to make sure that I know where the top is, where the bottom is, which side it is, and kind of where it fits in with the design. And then of course I add my 1 centimeter seam allowance around everything before cutting out these pieces. And that's my guide to how to make your own pattern pieces. Now, what I will say is that it does create a little bit of mess, as you will see when the camera pans up. There it is. But it's definitely very helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my little Skillshare video. I did forget to film an outro, so I'm doing this while I'm editing. But yeah, thank you, and I hope you have a good day.